Good morning. Wonderful to see you all this morning. Our invocation today is by Kristen Harper from a book called Voices from the Margins. Each day provides us with an opportunity to love again, to hurt again, to embrace joy, to experience unease, to discover the tragic. Each day provides us with the opportunity to live. This day is no different, this hour no more unique than the last, except maybe today, maybe now, among friends and fellow journeyers, maybe for the first time, maybe silently, we can share ourselves. Let's sing hymn number 6 in the gray hymnal. I will say yes to life. I'm forgetting the title of it. Just as long as I have breath, please rise as you are able in body and or spirit.
Welcome to First Parish in Milton. My name is Lisa White, and I'm a member of our worship committee. If you're having trouble hearing us, could you please raise your hand here in the meeting house or message us in the chat function on Zoom so we can fix it? We are so glad. Oh, Tom? You have- Can you hear? Can you get another one? Okay, thank you. We are so glad that you've chosen to be here with us this morning or to join us virtually. However your journey, whatever your heritage, and whomever you love, you are welcome here. This sanctuary is made holy by your presence. If you're joining us for the first time, a special welcome. You'll find information about First Parish in your pew, and one of the greeters or I would be happy to answer any questions you might have and also walk you over to social hour after the service. The work of living our faith is done both in and out of worship, so I call your attention to the printed announcements that came in your order of worship and that are also emailed each week in the link. One announcement that's actually not printed there is that our annual chocolate auction is coming up 3 weeks from today, February 9th. And whether you have something delicious to offer or you're going to be a bidder, we hope that you'll participate. If you've never been to the chocolate auction and want to know more about it, please talk to me in social hour. Also, the next Milton Community Concert will be the 10th annual Sing for Their Supper. It's a free benefit concert to support the Milton Food Pantry and Milton Residence Fund. It'll take place here in the Meeting House this coming Saturday, January 25th at 7 p.m. Wishing for summer already. And will feature 10 outstanding singers from around New England in a program of opera and musical theater. Admission is free and donations will be accepted to support these charities. This is also not printed in the order of worship today, but it is in the link. There are a few workshops that Reverend Lisa is going to be offering, but she needs to know who's interested in order to schedule them. So please look at that. If you're interested in any of them, please get in touch with her. And I'm going to call up Jeff Stote to make an announcement.
Hello, everyone. So it's supposed to be snowing later today. So I'm going to be strategic, as I was strategic using my advantage here to come up and tell you about this concert that I'm producing here at First Parish on Valentine's Day. Now, strategic in the sense that I'm going to send my email invitation to you when you're at home trying to keep warm in the storm today. So look for that. Also, Mark and Patricia Ostrom have generously opened the doors of their home to you before the show. The show is at 8, and at 6, we're going to have a gathering at the Ostroms. It's a potluck, but it's going to be a lot of fun. A great evening. The performer is a man named Randy Edelman. You might know his song, Weekend in New England. He's done many other pop songs, and he's been a movie composer for decades. And extra bonus, he will be at this gathering before the show. So I hope to see you all there. Thank you.
Now let's take a few minutes to greet one another and extend a warm welcome to old friends and new. And if you're on Zoom, please turn on your video and go to gallery view so you can say hello to others zooming in.
Good morning, all.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Mike, Tasha, good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
And
I'm
Marie.
zooming from Berkeley, California, and it's barely daylight and foggy to boot. So
We awoke this morning to a tornado warning here, which in Florida, which we slept through. I thought it was an Amber Alert, which come through pretty regularly. So I kind of shut my phone, tried to shut my phone off and then turn over. Well, woke later to find we slept through a little bit of a tornado. So.
My goodness. As we enter into worship, please take a moment to make sure that your cell phone is silenced. Now is the moment when we can focus on being here, when we can choose to connect with ourselves and the divine, when we can choose to just be present. Each Sunday, we light the chalice as a reminder that even in an unpredictable world, the flame continues to shine. a corner of warmth and awareness where we, the members of this faith community, can find support, comfort, and connection to one another. Now, please join me in saying the call to worship, which is text number 1 on the card in your pew rack. Come, let us gather. We gather to celebrate the sacred within and among us. We come to seek spiritual growth and understanding. We strive to practice acceptance, forgiveness, and love. Together, we work to build a world with justice and compassion. Come, let us gather together. So this morning, workshop and friends with
A day weekend. Happy 2025. Yeah, I'm Francie. I use she, her pronouns. I am the co-founder and now director of We the People. If you haven't met me before, We the People is a social and racial justice education project. We work with museums, libraries, and schools to do all kinds of programming with kids and grown-ups. Y'all are all right too. We do a lot of professional development trainings on and on. I will be in about 24 hours at the ICA mobbed with kids for an event. So it's really nice to be here with kids that I've been seeing pretty much every month. And I'm getting to know. We've been working all year so far since the fall on immigrant experiences everywhere and nowhere. And I just thought I'd show you a little bit of what we've been doing. So we've been reading really important stories. We've been making passports. These are 2 examples. The cover of this says "Everyone Belongs." So these are different kinds of passports. The very first time we met, we talked about papers and how you have to have the right papers to keep people in or out. And so these passports are the opposite of that. And you can probably tell from how they look. Today, we're doing something a little different. January 1st is Haitian Independence Day. My family is Haitian. My heritage is Haitian. And on January 1, to celebrate Haitian independence, we eat soup. It's called the soup jumeau. And so we're going to be reading this book called Freedom Soup. We're going to be making protest signs. So the kids are going to tell us, because clearly we grown-ups don't have it all figured out, what freedom is, what it looks like. So I'm really looking forward to that. And we will be here through, where's Paul? April, May, every month?
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
May.
So if you've got kiddos and you want to bring them by, you can find out when February session is, and we look forward to seeing you all. Thank you.
Let's sing you all out to that wonderful workshop. And now's the time in our service where we give each other this moment of stillness. Taking in the presence of this room, we relax into a time where we settle our bodies, get in touch with our breath, relax our jaws, lower our shoulders, and nurture our body with stillness. And please rise as you're able in body and spirit. We'll be singing hymn number 1020 in the teal hymnal. It's Wo Ya Ya. If those of you that know it, it's a little complicated, so pay attention. But those of you that know it, sing out loud, and we'll get it by the second verse, I'm positive.
Today's reading is from a sermon delivered by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in July of 1954 at Dexter Avenue Baptist Church in Montgomery, Alabama. And just a note that this original version uses non-inclusive gender language. What is man that thou art mindful of him? This question, flowing from the lips of the psalmist, Psalm 8, is one of the most important questions facing any generation. The whole political, social, and economic structure of any society is largely determined by its answer to this pressing question. Indeed, the conflict which we witness in the world today between totalitarianism and democracy is at bottom a conflict over the question, what is man? Whether man is a cog in the wheel of the state, or whether he is a free, creative being capable of facing responsibility. In our generation, the asking of this question has grown to extensive proportions. But though there is widespread agreement in asking the question, there's fantastic disagreement in answering it. A few modern thinkers would probably agree with the writer of yesterday, who spoke of man as the supreme clown of creation. Others would probably share the materialistic thinking of the recent writer who described man as a chemical laboratory driven about by sex impulse. Others would probably join in with the optimism of Shakespeare's Hamlet. What a piece of work is man, how noble in reason, how infinite in faculty, in form and moving, how express and admirable, in action, how like an angel, in apprehension, how like a god, the beauty of the world, the paragon of animals. Still others would agree with Thomas Carlyle in saying, there are depths in man that go to the lowest hell, and heights that reach the highest heaven. For are not both heaven and hell made out of him, everlasting miracle and mystery that he is? And so we can see that the attempt to answer the question, what is man, has brought about many answers. For the moment, let us turn to this significant question and see what we can do in terms of answering it.
We make the songs for the people, songs for the old and young, songs to stand like a battle cry wherever they are sung. We make the songs for the weary amid life's fever and fret, till heart shall relax their tension and careworn brows forget. For the clashing of sabers, for carnage nor for strife, but songs to thrill the hearts of all with more abundant life. Let me sing for little children before their footsteps stray. Of love and beauty, for love's a world so worn and weary, its music pure and strong. The jangle and discords of soul. Music to soothe all its sorrow to let me make the songs for the people, songs for the old and the young, songs to stand like a battle cry. Well, make the songs for the weary, amid life's fever and fright, till heart shall relax. Forget.
David Hooker, a Black community builder and professor of conflict transformation and peace building, was visiting Oxford, Mississippi. He went to the Ajax bar to order some food. A white Mississippian sitting at the bar said to no one in particular, "I remember when they didn't let N-words in here." Hooker immediately engaged. "That was crazy, wasn't it? I remember that too." He recounted this story and offered that the white man kind of looked at me like, "What do you mean you're not going to be offended?" The two ended up talking for 45 minutes about the election of Obama, the Ole Miss football team, and hopes for their kids. He was asking to have a conversation about race, Hooker said. He just didn't quite know how. This creative resistance to hatred or ignorance is a gesture that is part of the shape of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King's ministry. It's a small gesture, one that wouldn't even scratch the surface of the strides still needed for equity and justice, but part of the vision King had to bring this nation to a health and wholeness as yet unknown. Dr. King approached hatred as a sickness of mind and body, with fear and intolerance as hatred's activating agents. Dr. King and the millions who engaged and continue to engage in the transformative work of civil rights know that hatred in the form of bigotry is a fatal sickness, a disease in society, which, if gone unchecked, will eventually ravage all people. Us and them doesn't work. With our experience of COVID and increased extreme weather challenges, it is puzzling that many still do not see clearly that we're all in this together. The other day, I attended a webinar led by SURGE, a national organization calling white people to show up for racial justice. We had the treat of an interview with Angela Davis, a Black feminist political activist, philosopher, and author, well known in the civil rights struggles in the 1960s. The interviewer asked this amazing, nearly 81-year-old, how through all these decades did she stay in? How, with the despair of where we are now, can we keep on keeping on? Ms. Davis's answer flowed freely. "We know what we need to do," she said, "but we don't know how right now." "Don't be afraid to improvise," she offered. "It takes a sense of history because this is a struggle of longue durée or endurance. We have to imagine ourselves as larger than we think we are, connected to a larger shared presence, connected indeed to the universe." End quote. We all need to do our part to build a healthy world and know that it is not all up to us. We need both an affirmative vision and the willingness of welcome. This would build the beloved community that Dr. King envisioned. King named what will give us wisdom toward wholeness as the supreme unifying principle of life. King had no doubt of the truth of this unifying principle stirring in his being. He named it love. When I speak of love, King shared in 1967, I'm not speaking of some sentimental and weak response, which is little more than emotional bosh. I'm speaking of that force which all of the great religions have seen as the supreme unifying principle of life. Love is somehow the key that unlocks the door which leads to ultimate reality. End quote. Now, this love that Dr. King spoke of is not an easy love. It's a love that dares us to recognize the gift of this life given to all, this miracle we manifest for a time. This love prods us to respond with dignity and humility. It's a transformative love that breeds courage in the face of danger, defiance in the face of injustice, and faith in the face of cynicism. It's a love that is both tough and tender, shrewd and forgiving, strong and unrelenting. A love that transcends personal gain. A love that sees and hears and reveals what blocks harmony. It is a love we can choose to ignore, a love that we have chosen to ignore too often as a people. A love that will not do the work of healing unless we activate its power. Martin Luther King believed that the civil rights movement was the transforming of a nation's soul, that it could indeed heal the malady of hatred, ignorance, and injustice. He believed in an American dream more holistic than originally intended: equal opportunity, equal regard, equal liberty for all people. And he believed that the witness of the Black experience in America would uplift the conscience of this dream to evolutionary reform. There were times when that witness did uplift the conscience. Strides were made to secure the vote for all citizens, and steps were taken to curb blatant physical oppression. People were challenged to look at their lives in witnessing barbarism, denial, complacency, and terrorism. In contrast, King led peaceful demonstrations, sacrifice, and passionate demands for dignity amongst a nation believed to be the promised land. But the road was not smooth, nor the arc directly bending towards justice, as was hoped. For the tough lessons of love and dignity turned to poverty and the Vietnam War. When the talk of equal opportunity then focused on the redistribution of wealth and foreign policy, those in power were not so ready to share a piece of the American pie. And I believe that's what got him killed. The civil rights movement hit the glass ceiling, so to speak. Freedom and justice was only heard by those in power as long as the reform did not take any of their economic and political power away. As long as the reform did not truly restructure the status quo. King pointed out that white America was deluding itself in thinking the middle-class utopia was available to all simply after the long overdue gestures of reforming Jim Crow laws. The delusion became clear after the increased focus on economic justice and a call for broad-based employment opportunities. With this progressive call came a stiffening of white resistance. The disturbing present backlash today to DEI initiatives and what's named woke philosophies clearly demonstrates the still sickening divide driven by political power and money. We are facing an oligarchy. It's just around the corner. The rule of the rich and laws and policies which benefit the rich. We need to pay attention. On April 4th, 1967, Dr. King gave a speech at Stanford University entitled "The Other America," which addressed race, poverty, and economic justice. King spoke of the two Americas, one prosperous and thriving, the other poor and living in terrible conditions. I submit that however unpleasant it is, King said, we must honestly see and admit that racism is still deeply rooted all over America. It is still deeply rooted in the North, and it's still deeply rooted in the South. And this leads me to say something about another discussion that we hear a great deal, and that is the so-called white backlash. He continued, I would like to honestly say to you that the white backlash is merely a new name for an old phenomenon. It's not something that just came into being because of shouts of Black power or because Negroes engaged in riots in Watts, for instance, he argued. The fact is that the state of California voted a fair housing bill out of existence before anybody shouted Black power or before anybody rioted in Watts. He then added, there has never been a unified, determined commitment on the part of the vast majority of white Americans on the whole question of civil rights and on the whole question of racial equality. This is something that truth impels all men of goodwill to admit. He goes on. It is said on the Statue of Liberty that America is a home of exiles. It doesn't take us long to realize that America has been the home of its white exiles from Europe, but it has not evinced the same kind of maternal care and concern for its Black exiles from Africa. What I'm trying to get across is that our nation has constantly taken a positive step forward on the question of racial justice and racial equality. But over and over again, at the same time, it made certain backward steps. And this has been the persistence of the so-called white backlash. Hello. 1967. It takes a sense of history to keep on keeping on. And nearly a year after that speech, Dr. King spoke these prophetic words. History has thrust upon our generation an indescribably important destiny to complete a process of democratization which our nation has too long developed too slowly. How we deal with this crucial situation will determine our moral health as individuals, our cultural health as a region, our political health as a nation, and our prestige as the leader of the free world. Days later, on April 4th, 1968, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated at the Lorraine Motel in Memphis, Tennessee. This is a crucial situation. We are in it now that will determine our moral health as a nation. We know that more can be done and felt for ourselves and others when we come together. We can also be a refuge to each other, a place where we can weather difficult times. And there are communities all over the place that is doing the same thing. When we recognize that we're all in this together, we can risk discomfort, knowing a sense of home exists somewhere in our lives. When we recognize we're all in this together, we can speak our truth and hopes for a larger seeing. When we recognize that we're all in this together, we can resist malice, knowing it hurts us all. And yes, a few steps forward and then backlash. If we see this more clearly, the effect will be lessened, and we can move on. We can overcome. So may it be. Amen. Let's sing hymn number 1018 in the Teal hymnal, Come and Go With Me. us join our hearts in the spirit of prayer. O supreme unifying principle in life, known by many names, loved in many ways, come to our awareness. Come by here. Help us feel the strength of our moral courage, our equity courage, our humble courage, and see that we have all that we need to come to the dreams so eloquently spoken by people like Martin Luther King. Let us find ourselves in that long arc of history, giving what we can, when we can, and asking for help when we need. And for all the prayers, deeply felt but unspoken, let us hold them in love. Amen.
Partridge. Together, Owen Hartford and I joined First Parish about 6 years ago. But this morning, I want to tell you about my personal journey toward and into this congregation. In a couple Sundays, you'll hear from Owen. I grew up about half a block from an Episcopal church, and I felt at home there, and it was a good base for me. But about the minute I went off to college, the church going just dropped away until 6 years ago. In my 40s, I had met a friend exactly my age named Nancy. At the time, Nancy was in Unitarian Universalist Seminary. I went to her graduation, her ordination, her installation into her first parish as a pastor. And I absorbed her Unitarianism. Haven't learned to say it yet. She was a fifth-generation Unitarian. In retirement, Nancy joined a UU church in Maine and was part of a group there called Seasoned Souls. It was for middle-aged and older people who wanted to talk about getting old without people saying, "Oh, you're not old, don't talk like that." I planned my visits to Nancy around when her group would be meeting. They welcomed me, and I came to love that group. I even made a trip to Maine for a funeral of one of them. I wanted what they had with each other. When Owen and I got together in our 70s and were thinking of joining First Parish, we went to an orientation. I talked about how that group in Maine had made me be able to picture myself as a UU. And Reverend Lisa said, well, we could start a group like that here. So we did. Aging Together is now in its 5th year. When COVID hit, we started meeting on Zoom, though we sometimes still meet in person, especially for parties. Zoom helps us get together, even if we're sick or the roads are icy, or we're away from home. We start our meetings with a check-in so we get to know each other's challenges and joys. Believe it or not, there can be some joyous things about being old. You're likely to have more self-acceptance. You may be able to throw yourself into things that you really love and let go of things that you don't really love. Each meeting has a focus. Our November meeting was about local retirement communities. In December, we shared stories about people having been kind to us, great stories. This month, we talked about death with dignity. We have ended several meetings with one of us telling a 20-minute version of our life story. This is about getting to know each other and being known, feeling known. It's about seeing ourselves in each other and learning from each other. Your body wearing out can be a real pain. Having a friend or sibling die can be awful. But having each other, liking each other, encouraging and valuing each other, I find thrilling. I thank my friend Nancy, the seasoned souls of Maine, Reverend Lisa, and all my friends in Aging Together for my not doing old age alone. I have been lucky enough to live into my 80s. Don't tell me I'm not old, even if I know you mean it as a compliment. But if there's one thing you take from my words this morning, I hope it's this. If there's something you want that you could use from this faith community, have faith and say it. Say so. There might be people here who can help make it happen.
Thank you, Penny. I was going to make a joke about looking forward to getting old enough to join that group, but I don't think I'm young enough to get away with that, so. Today's offering is dedicated to the services and ministry of First Parish Milton. To give, please follow the instructions printed in your order of worship or shown on the Zoom screen. And for those of you here in the meeting house, there are collection plates at both entrances if you'd rather do check or cash. If you are proud of this church, become its advocate. If you care about its future, share its message. We welcome all to build a just and healthy world with faith, love, and compassion. Please support our faith community by giving as generously as you can.
Good morning. I've had a hard, difficult time saying Happy New Year. Where does one even begin when so many people's own existence, health, jobs, and free speech are at risk?
Martin Luther King Jr. said, "Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter."
As a you, doing nothing at all is not an option.
But where does one begin?
Our faith calls us to be in unity with others on things that matter.
But where do I begin?
Our faith calls us to be courageous, nonviolent, and resist oppression.
But where do we begin?
Being here together in song and prayer is a start.
Never giving up on the dream that our country will someday stand in unity against hatred, oppression, and greed is a start.
Acts of loving kindness and resistance, no matter how small, is a start.
The good news is that you do not have to be an MLK or a Rosa Parks to do something.
Martin Luther King made it clear that each and every one of us, no matter how young or old, how rich or poor, by standing together, we could do something, however small or large, that mattered.
So where do we begin?
Happy New Year. People say to me, oh, you gotta be crazy. How can you sing in times like these? Don't you read the news? Don't you know the score? How can you sing when so many others grieve? People say to me, what kind of fool believes that a song will make a difference in the end? By way of a reply, I say a fool such as I, who sees a song that's somewhere to begin. A song is somewhere to begin. The search for something worth believing in. If changes are to come, there are things that must be done, and a song is somewhere to begin. People say to me, oh, you gotta be crazy. How can you dream in times like these? Don't you read the news? Don't you know the score? How can you dream when so many others breathe? People say to me, what kind of fool believes that a dream will make a difference in the end? By way of a reply, I say a fool such as I, who sees a dream as somewhere to begin. The search for something worth believing in. If changes are to come, there are things that must be done, and a dream is somewhere to begin. People say to me, oh, you gotta be crazy. How can you love in times like these? Don't you read the news? Don't you know the score? How can you love when so many others grieve? People say to me, what kind of fool believes that love will make a difference in the end? By way of a reply, I say a fool such as I, who sees love as somewhere to begin. Love and love is somewhere, and a dream is somewhere, and a song is somewhere to begin.
Please rise as you're able and join in the unison dedication. May these gifts be transformed into strength for this faith community, into comfort, food, and shelter for those in need, and may we be transformed by generosity.
And as I douse the flame of our chalice, may the fire of our faith burn brightly and deeply within. May we believe that this is somewhere to begin, and we can find our encouragement, our strength, our love, our care by sharing it together. Have a good week. Amen.